welcome to the set of The Verdict, and good morning. I'm Mick Cornett along with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues, and today we're going to learn more about immigration law.
Yes, we're really pleased to have today the fellow that I consider to be the premier immigration lawyer in the state of Oklahoma and maybe beyond that, talk to us about what's going on in the immigration practice and in the immigration law, including a discussion of President Obama's recent executive orders in that regard. His name is Amir Farzaneh. He practices law in Oklahoma. I'm proud to say he's one of the new sponsors on The Verdict, but that isn't why we had him on before that. Had him scheduled before that. But we're going to talk about immigration law. It's a lot more interesting and complex than perhaps the average lawyer would believe, and certainly I think our viewers will enjoy it.
It touches so many aspects of our society today, and we're going to get into it today on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
I've known I was going to be an artist since I was a little kid. I still have teachers that in grade school that still have my artwork. I think I told them something along the lines, this is keep that, it's going to be worth money someday. I'm Justin Mader, I'm an artist, and I'm Chickasaw. My muse is the Muskogean, Mississippian art. When I see that, my mind just fills up with bubbles of ideas. My big thing right now is shell carving, the shell gorgets. My work is refined more and more until I found my own rhythm. I also do metallurgy, where I've been acid etching copper and hammering copper to make a copper repoussé. You only have one chance to do it right, so it requires a lot of planning and thought and just patience. My Chickasaw heritage is the foundation of who I am. It's the roots of where I come from, and it inspires me as an artist and inspires the tenacity of never giving up.
Learn more about today's Chickasaws at profilesofanation.com.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Today it's a special privilege to me to introduce not only a great guest, but a very close friend, a fellow I consider as a close friend of mine, so just to factor that bias into anything that you may hear from me today. We have Amir Farzaneh with us today. He's an attorney and the founder of the Farzaneh Law Firm in Oklahoma City. Did his undergraduate work at the University of Oklahoma in nuclear medicine. Got a master's degree in health administration from the University of Oklahoma. Did his law work at Oklahoma City University, and has been an immigration lawyer for 19 years, or approximately 19 years. He's admitted to practice in Oklahoma and Texas. He's admitted in almost every court there can be, including immigration law courts. He's a frequent speaker and author on immigration topics, and we're really pleased to have him here. I would refer to him as my immigration lawyer, a fellow I look to for that kind of thing. So Amir, welcome. Sure glad to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, what brought you to Oklahoma to begin with?
Well, I came to Oklahoma in January of 1984 to go to school, to go to OU. And to begin with, I was not able to speak English when I got here, so I had to go to English school for 3 months to be able to speak, read, and write enough to go to school.
And your native country?
From Iran.
Iran, okay.
Iran. And I was born and raised in Tehran. I was almost 20 when I came to the U.S. And ever since then, I just got more and more familiar with. I mean, at that time, I became more familiar with the great American life and American system, and eventually became a U.S. resident and a U.S. citizen, a proud U.S. citizen that has earned his U.S. citizenship.
That background, though, should give you a certain perspective on immigration law, having been
Absolutely.
through the process. Tell us about how those experiences affected the way you view the law today.
Absolutely. It was going through the immigration legal system that made me realize how difficult and how complex immigration laws are, and how, if someone understands the system, can help those who are in need. And I truly enjoy practice of immigration law because I do understand it, and every time that I help someone, every client that I've had, every single client, by the time that we're done with the case and they achieve the result that they need, there's a joy that you see in their eyes, and there's a joy that I feel every time that something good happens to them. And that's one of the beautiful things about immigration law.
Your law office is where is it?
We're in Norman.
In Norman, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's right. And your
Right,
office
we
was
moved
the
to
one that
Norman.
recently got some publicity, not wanted and not solicited, and
Right.
where they had the shooter go into the law office and shoot it up. That was Amir's office, and he's always been a good scheduler. He wasn't there when it happened. Well,
Exactly.
what are some of the interesting stories you can tell us about cases you've handled, without disclosing any names, but
Right.
interesting things that you've come across?
Right. Well, there are, as I said, whenever you get the result that needs to be gotten, we always get, the result always is a good thing that has happened to somebody. From time to time, unfortunately, that result is not there, but that becomes a story that we learn from. For example, in 1996, a law came about called IRA, or Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996. One of the things that this law brought about was that if someone has been unlawfully present in the U.S. for over a year, if that person leaves the U.S., he or she cannot come back for 10 years. And if he or she does that, they cannot ever stay in the U.S. legally. No exceptions, no waivers, nothing. Now, you can imagine how many people there are that may, sometimes inadvertently, be in that situation where they have all the things necessary to be a U.S. resident or a U.S. citizen, but they cannot ever come back to the U.S. because of that one mistake.
They may have left to go visit a dying relative or something and not thinking about that, and then they can't come back.
Exactly, and this is exactly what happened to one of our clients. We represented many years ago, about maybe 10 or 15 years ago, a very nice Native American lady, and she was married to a Mexican gentleman that was brought to the U.S. when he was 3. They had 2 beautiful children, and what happened was, even though he knew that he cannot leave and he should not leave, and we had applied for his green card and he was getting his U.S. residency, everything was going just fine, but because his dad was sick, he had to. He left to bury his dad and come back, and as a result, even though we asked him not to, but even though he knew the consequences, he did it, and as a result, he could not get to stay in the U.S. ever legally. So things like that make you think, make you wonder why we should not change some of the bad effects of the immigration law.
Let me ask a general question that I'm sure has a lot of intricacies to it. If someone is currently living in another country and they want to come to the United States to attend college, how easy is that to accomplish, and what does it depend on?
Much of that depends on what country they're from.
So is there a list? Is there a public list of these citizens are welcome here to go to college, these citizens are not?
No, there is no such list, but in general, those people who are considered to be intending immigrants become disqualified to come here to go to school, for example, because they have to have no intention to abandon their residences outside the U.S. So that being the case, for example, citizens of Europe, they can come to the U.S. a whole lot easier than citizens of the third world countries. Now, that doesn't mean that they cannot come here. They can, but they have to just prove more that they will not stay in the U.S. and they would not abandon the residences outside the U.S.
And how long can that process take?
The process of obtaining the visa should not take very long. But of course, in certain situations, they do background checks that may take months, sometimes years, and in some situations, just a few days. So it all depends, again, on the situation, a case-by-case situation.
I noticed some of our universities, I think I'm correct in saying that all three of the large universities in Oklahoma really do a recruiting process to try to get foreign students to come and study in the United States.
Correct.
How do they handle those matters? Do you get involved in those, or do the universities handle those students?
The universities handle that themselves in most cases. We do get involved from time to time when individual cases need our help. Either we represent the individual, or from time to time the employer or the program that may need somebody to come here to the United States.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Most of the cases that we do handle have to do with the employment-based cases, as opposed to.
So if a person has a job lined up, are they likely to be allowed to immigrate to the United States?
Again, and not always, and this is how it works. We have different types of non-immigrant visas for various types of job offers. So let's say an employer wants to hire an employee that is from another country. We have these visas. Generally, we have non-immigrant visas from A to V, and each one is designed for a very specific situation or very specific type of position. The problem is that there are so many situations where there is not a fit visa for.
There's not a category for it.
There's not a category for. For example, nurses. We know that there is a need for nurses. If you want to go ahead and just hire nurses to come and work for you, and we do have the need for it, there's really no perfect fit visa for nurses. So if I'm an employer that wants to employ nurses, and I have the opening for 20 nurses, and here are these nurses from Philippines or another country that they can come and work for me, there's really no fit visa. We have to just look at them one by one, and some of them may qualify, some of them may not. So that's the problem that we have with immigration visas. We don't have them.
We're not the only country that people would like to perhaps relocate to. Do other countries have similar issues and similar intricacies, or is the United States unique in how we handle immigration?
The United States is somewhat unique because although we're not the only country that people want to go to and live in, but we are possibly the most desired country in the world to go to. The freedom that we have here in the United States, the good economic situation that we have. Most people, more people want to come to the United States, in my opinion, than any other country in the world.
We're going to take a break and get right back. We're discussing
just hold
immigration
that thought.
law.
Sure.
We'll be right back on The Verdict.
It's a North American energy revolution. We're the fastest growing source of new oil and natural gas supplies in the world.
The shift to North American energy will create approximately 3 million jobs.
All that money we've been sending overseas, $400 billion a year. Imagine that staying in our economy. It's a game changer.
Real energy independence starts now, and it starts with Oklahoma.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
Welcome back to the Set of the Verdict. We're discussing immigration policy, and immigration law. When we left, we were talking about the fact the United States is probably the country that has the largest amount of people wanting to relocate to that country. Sometimes you'll hear about people that will relocate to Canada just because they want to next relocate into the United States. So is that an issue, and how does that affect immigration law when a person really is trying to hopscotch their way around the globe to try and get to wherever they want to get?
Right. Even though that should not be something that people do, unfortunately, people do that, and you're absolutely right. There are laws in place that would not allow people to use use Canada, for example, as a stepping stone to come to the United States, especially when we come down to asylum and refugees and such. There are people who come in and apply for refugee status or asylum in Canada, and then they want to go ahead and come and do the same thing in the United States. So there are laws that prevent that. But at the same time, there are people that do not qualify to come to the United States because the laws of the United States, the immigration laws of the U.S. are so complex and so complicated and sometimes so difficult to become a U.S. resident that people find it easier to become a resident and eventually a citizen of Canada and be able to come and go into the United States.
I know your practice has, to some degree, an emphasis on representing folks that have business interests here or representing businesses that have employees that need immigration help. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Most of my practice is concentrated on employment-based immigration law. We represent employers.
Well, is your client then the employee or the employer?
Most of my clients are the employers.
Okay.
So we represent employers that do need employees, and they need to come to be compliant with the immigration laws, and that in and of itself is a pretty difficult thing to do. You'd be amazed how many employers are there that do not know anything about immigration laws and do not know that they need to be compliant with immigration laws, and that's a part of what we do. We help employers with that. Also, we help employers with bringing in foreign talent or foreign employees to work for them. As I mentioned earlier, there are sometimes no-fit visa for certain types of positions, but there are some that do fit the situation that the employers have. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones that we concentrate on.
Can we talk about the executive action that the president took?
Absolutely.
And how does that affect the current status?
Well, remind our viewers what that was, if you will, and then let's get into it.
Absolutely. Because the immigration laws can be very complex, and because of the fact that we had so many undocumented aliens here in the United States, what the president did in mid-2012, in June of 2012, he came up with the first executive action, major executive action that had to do with immigration, and he decided that those people who were brought to the U.S. when they were children and are not criminals, have not done anything illegal, and have gone to school, those people, we can sort of hold off on deporting them. And the idea behind it was that because the government has the ability only to deport and send back a very small fraction of those who are illegally in the U.S., the government decided to go ahead and concentrate on those criminal and dangerous aliens and get them out of the United States. And those people who were brought to the U.S. when they were younger and they went to school and they have the ability to be a beneficial member of the society would hold off on deporting them. And they called that a deferred action. So they said that what we do, we're not going to deport you now, but what you need to do is just come to surface, so let us know where you are, what you do, and we can give you work authorization, and you can be legal for a limited time, for the interim. And that did help many people. Not only it did help the immigrants, it also helped the employers. It helped because there is now more workforce available for employers that do need them. So that actually, in my opinion, helped, and it helped quite a bit. In November of last year, November of 2014, the president decided to go ahead and extend this. And he had another executive order that would have allowed for the parents of the U.S. citizens do get benefits or do not get deported if they are legal, if they have not done anything. If they are not criminals, and if they have not done anything wrong, they can stay in the U.S. for the interim and be deported later. But what happened was that order is now on hold. There was a decision out of a federal court in Texas that put a moratorium on that. But at this point in time, that first executive order that did allow for those people who were brought to the U.S. when they were young to not be deported until later, that one is in effect.
And we haven't really discussed the national security concerns. Do you ever get involved in that aspect of what we're talking about?
Well, to some degree. Obviously, being an employment-based immigration lawyer, I do not deal with that part of it as much as some of the attorneys that deal with the criminal cases. But this is my opinion about it. It is true that national security and immigration have the synergy that our national security can be served better if our immigration laws work in a better way. At the same time, I do know that after 9/11, the way many people looked at immigration law was in a fearful manner. They were thinking that these immigrants are going to come to the U.S. and they're going to do all these bad things, but that was not the case. Immigrants are the reason for strength in this country. Immigrants are the reason that the United States is the United States, is the best country in the world because of all those good immigrants that came to the U.S. and brought all the good talent that they had to our country.
But you can't ignore the idea that we have to protect our borders.
Absolutely.
And you know, the concerns of today, the damage that one person can do. It makes this a very serious topic for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
I guess you're watching with a lot of interest when you see Congress and the President debating these types of subjects.
I do.
What should happen? I mean, how can we resolve this where the employers can get qualified employees from other parts of the world and the United States' best interests about securing its borders can take place too?
Absolutely. The first thing that needs to happen is we need to have some serious changes in our immigration laws. The way the immigration laws are now, they're so complex that even those good immigrants that we do need, you know, immigration is like one of those things. There are immigrants that we do need and there are immigrants that we do not want. It needs to work in a way that we can get rid of those bad immigrants, those people who are criminals, the people that are not desirable, to be able to get rid of those and be able to welcome those that we need. The problem that we have now is that because of the way the immigration laws are now, there are many good immigrants that cannot become legal. And many of those people that get deported because of technicalities and paperwork, for lack of a better term. They are technical illegals, for lack of a better term. We should be changing the laws to a point that those good immigrants can pass through the technical part and be able to stay in the U.S. and be able to become legal, and those who are not desirable, and especially the criminal aliens, they would be deported.
It's hard to do.
It is hard to do, but it is doable.
Yeah. Well, of the national dialogue that you hear taking place, who's on the right track?
In my opinion, the president is on the right track, and I'm going to say why. Here's the thing.
We got about 45 seconds left.
Sure.
So make it succinct.
The president, what he's doing, many people say, well, the president cannot make laws. I mean, he has to carry it out. And what he's doing by having the executive order, he's carrying out the laws, but in a way that would allow for those good aliens to stay. And he's concentrating on getting at the criminal aliens.
Amir, great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
A complicated issue. We appreciate you shedding some light on it. Kent and I'll have some final word right after this.
There are now 11 million of us who live here and work here. I was 15 when I came here 6 years ago. I raised my family here. I drive my truck to my job every day. The only difference between now and 6 years ago, I do it legally. I wanted to. Because this is my home.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
We are a very conservative family, and we believe in old-fashioned family values. We have a loving home there, and we love kids, and we had 5, 6 of our own. And but had no idea we were going to go into adoption, but it's been very gratifying.
You will always be Mom and Dad to me.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. We are wrapping up a show on immigration law with Amir Farzaneh.
Yeah, I don't want to overemphasize this, but Amir has been my go-to immigration guy for as long as he's been here. I've recommended employers go visit with him, and they're very pleased with what he does. This is a difficult topic and an emotional topic, and people are right to have emotions about it, but dealing with Amir is a real pleasure.
You know, if you put 10 people in a room and you really drill down on this issue, you'd probably get 10 different opinions about what's okay, what's not okay.
Yep.
And that shows you the complexity of this issue and you know, the needs of a lot of different factors in all of this. More information if you'd like to visit with our guest later, farzaneh.com. And we have a website. We'd love for you to go and tell us about a guest you'd like to see on a future show. It's theverdict.tv. See you next week.